I wanted to shine at my daughter's wedding. Instead, I became the subject of whispers. Find out how Hello, dear listeners. Before I begin, let me kindly ask you, please give this story a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments which city you're listening from. It truly means the world to me. My name is Margaret Caldwell. I am 68 years old, a retired school librarian, and for the most part, I've lived a life of quiet dignity. I thought I had grown immune to vanity. I thought I had accepted my age with grace. But 2 days before my daughter's wedding, I discovered just how wrong I was. It started with something simple, something so ordinary that I never imagined it could lead me into humiliation. I walked into the cosmetics store at our local mall. I wasn't looking for anything for myself. I had meant to pick up a gift set for my daughter-in-law, something thoughtful, yet modest. The moment I stepped inside, a salesman swooped in like a hawk. He was young, polished, the kind of man who spoke with the confidence of someone who had rehearsed every line 100 times. His smile was bright, his suit perfectly pressed, and his eyes locked onto me as if I were his only customer in the world. "Ma'am," he said warmly, "forgive me for being so forward, but you have the most elegant skin. At your daughter's wedding, you should be radiant. I can help you achieve that glow." I laughed nervously. Compliments like that had not been directed at me in many years. I tried to brush it off. "Oh, I'm far too old for that kind of thing," I replied, tugging at the strap of my purse. "Too old?" he gasped, as if I had insulted him. "Nonsense. You are timeless, and all it takes is the right touch to make your natural beauty shine. Let me show you. Just 5 minutes, free of charge." I should have walked away, but something inside me, something I thought I had buried, stirred. Perhaps it was pride. Perhaps it was fear of standing next to my daughter, glowing and young in her wedding gown, while I appeared tired and faded. So, I agreed. He led me to a chair in front of a tall mirror, the kind lit by soft bulbs that made every reflection seem smoother, more forgiving. He pulled out brushes, creams, powders. His hands moved quickly, confidently, as he spoke with a rhythm that reminded me of a salesman's pitch at a county fair. "This foundation evens everything out, gives you a flawless look. This blush, it brings warmth back to your cheeks. And this lipstick, bold but dignified. Trust me, your daughter will be so proud to have such a stylish mother walking beside her." I stared at my reflection as he worked. The colors were brighter than what I would normally choose, the lines sharper, my lips fuller, my eyes darker. It was not me, but some version of me I did not recognize, yet strangely wanted to believe in. "See?" he whispered as he swiveled the chair slightly. "You don't look 68. You look like you've turned back time." And in that moment, I believed him. I believed every word. He placed bottles and palettes in front of me as if they were treasures. Moisturizer, primer, foundation, contour sticks, shimmering powders, a lipstick the color of ripe cherries. By the time I stood to leave, I had signed a receipt longer than my arm. Hundreds of dollars for products I hadn't planned to buy. But I left the store clutching the bag as if it contained a secret, a promise, a second chance. All I could think was, at my daughter's wedding, I will not be invisible. I will not fade into the background. She will look at me and see a woman who still matters. If only I had known then the shame that awaited me. If only I had known how those painted colors would turn into the harshest mirror I'd ever faced. But that part of the story comes later. Want me to continue right away with Chapter 1, Part 2, Sigh 900 Words, where Margaret prepares for the wedding and convinces herself the salesman was right. owned my dignity again. The morning of my daughter's wedding dawned crisp and golden, the kind of morning that seemed hand-picked by God himself. Sunlight streamed across my kitchen table, falling onto the glossy shopping bag that still sat there from the day before. The cosmetics I had bought, so many little jars and tubes, were lined neatly inside, waiting like unopened promises. I made myself a cup of tea, but I could barely taste it. My eyes kept drifting to that bag. A whisper inside my head told me, "You could look radiant today. Don't waste the chance." I carried the bag upstairs into my bedroom and set it on the dresser. One by one, I pulled out the products. The labels gleamed under the morning light. My heart beat faster with each step, as if I were about to do something daring, something forbidden. I sat down at my vanity, the mirror reflecting my lined face, my thinning hair pinned carefully back. For a long moment, I just studied myself. This was the face that had raised children, buried parents, laughed at barbecues, cried into pillows. It was my true face, but I pushed that thought aside. Instead, I reached for the primer. The salesman's voice echoed in my head. Flawless, radiant, timeless. I smoothed the liquid across my skin, then the foundation, then the powders, blush, shadows. Each product seemed to build a layer, covering not just wrinkles, but history. My lips turned a shade too bold, my eyelids shimmered unnaturally. When I finally leaned back and looked at myself, I gasped. I was not Margaret Caldwell anymore. I was some sharper, brighter version, a stranger wearing my skin. For a moment, I almost liked her. She looked confident, daring, even glamorous. And yet, something gnawed at me. I tilted my head left, then right. The woman in the mirror tilted too. Her smile felt heavy, unnatural. I told myself I was being silly. I told myself this was exactly what my daughter deserved. A mother who could stand beside her proudly, not one who faded into the background like wallpaper. Still, a part of me whispered, "If only you knew what others will see." I brushed the thought aside. There was no turning back now. I put on my pale blue dress, the one I had chosen months earlier. It was modest, with lace at the sleeves and a flowing skirt. Nothing too loud, but paired with the bold makeup, the effect was jarring. The dress whispered, "Mother of the bride," but the face in the mirror shouted something else entirely. As I fastened the necklace my late husband had given me on our 25th anniversary, my hands trembled. I wondered briefly what he would think if he saw me now. Would he smile and say I looked beautiful? Or would he give me that gentle frown he always wore when he thought I'd gone too far? I tried not to think about it. By the time I slipped on my shoes and gathered my purse, my heart was racing. I stepped outside, the cool morning air brushing against my painted face. The neighbors waved as I climbed into the car, and I caught a flicker of something in their expressions. Surprise, maybe even confusion. But I ignored it. I told myself it was just because I looked different, better. All the way to the church, I clung to that thought. I imagined walking into the sanctuary, imagined my daughter turning to see me, her eyes widening with admiration. "That's my mother," she would think. "Isn't she stunning?" The fantasy carried me through the doors, carried me past the guests who glanced up as I entered. Some smiled politely, some blinked twice. A few whispered to each other. I lifted my chin, pretending not to notice. I told myself they were impressed. I told myself they were envious. But in the pit of my stomach, something began to twist. And though I did not know it yet, the cruelest words I would ever hear from my own daughter were waiting just around the corner. The church was already buzzing with life when I arrived. Voices rose and fell in cheerful waves. Organ music drifted faintly from the balcony, and the air was thick with the scent of lilies and roses. It should have been a perfect moment, my daughter's wedding day, the day I had waited for, prayed for, and dreamed of since she was a little girl twirling in her Sunday dress. I clutched my purse tighter and stepped into the foyer. The usher smiled at me politely, though his eyes lingered a second longer than I expected. He guided me toward the family pews near the front. Every step down that aisle felt like walking through a tunnel of eyes. Heads turned. Some smiled with warmth, others tilted curiously. A few blinked as though they were uncertain of what they were seeing. I tried to keep my head high, but inside my thoughts churned. Why are they staring? Is it admiration or something else? The salesman's voice rang again in my memory. You'll be radiant. You'll turn heads. And indeed I had, only I wasn't sure anymore whether it was for the reasons I had hoped. I slid into the pew. My sister-in-law, Carol, sitting nearby, gave me a quick glance and then busied herself smoothing her skirt. My neighbor from across the street, Mrs. Whitaker, leaned toward her husband and whispered something behind her hand. I forced a smile, though my cheeks already ached beneath the layers of powder. The organ music swelled, and guests began to settle. The bridal party lined up near the doors. I held my breath, waiting for the moment my daughter, my beautiful Emily, would walk down the aisle. And then it happened. She appeared in the doorway, glowing in white satin, her veil catching the light like spun sugar. My heart nearly burst. She looked like every dream I had ever held for her, graceful, radiant, beloved. But then her eyes met mine. It was only a second, maybe two, but I saw it as clearly as if the whole church had gone silent. Her smile faltered. Her gaze darted over me, my lips too red, my eyelids too dark, my face no longer familiar. She quickly looked away, regaining her composure for the guests, but for me, the damage was done. I felt as though the floor beneath me had shifted. Still, I clung to hope. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe she was just nervous. Maybe later she would laugh and tell me I looked wonderful. The ceremony moved forward, vows exchanged, rings slipped onto fingers. Applause filled the sanctuary. And through it all I sat with my heart clenched, a growing unease gnawing at me. When it was over, the guests spilled into the reception hall. The air smelled of roasted chicken and champagne, laughter echoing as people mingled. I followed slowly, my heels clicking against the polished floor. That was when the whispers began to grow louder. "Is that her mother?" one woman murmured, not softly enough. "She looks different," another replied. I caught fragments, each one like a needle. Too much makeup, doesn't even look like her. Why would she? My chest tightened. I forced myself to keep walking, to smile, to pretend. But deep down, I knew. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. And soon the one person whose opinion mattered most would prove it to me in the harshest way possible. The reception hall glowed with string lights and polished silverware, the kind of warmth you only see in wedding magazines. Guests crowded the tables, glasses clinked, waiters passed trays of hors d'oeuvres. Laughter rose around me like music. And yet, I felt myself shrinking into the shadows, clutching my clutch bag as if it could shield me from what I already feared. I lingered near the edge of the room, close enough to watch Emily greeting guests, but far enough that no one would notice my trembling hands. She was radiant, truly radiant, in a way no amount of makeup could ever create. Her smile was effortless, her beauty natural. She glowed with happiness, and I wanted so desperately to be part of that glow. I told myself, she'll see me soon. She'll say I look beautiful. She'll be proud that her mother made such an effort. But when she finally walked toward me, her bouquet tucked under one arm, I saw no pride in her face. "Mom," she whispered. her voice low but sharp enough to cut through the chatter around us. She leaned closer so no one else could hear. "What are you wearing on your face?" I blinked. "It's just makeup, sweetheart. The gentleman at the store, he said it would make me look radiant for your big day." Her eyes widened, scanning me from forehead to chin. I could see the disbelief in her gaze, the discomfort she wasn't even trying to hide. "Radiant?" she hissed. "Mom, you look like you're pretending to be someone else. This isn't you. This is—" She stopped herself, biting down on the harsher word, but I saw it in her eyes all the same. I felt my stomach drop. "Emily," my voice cracked. "I just wanted to make you proud, to be by your side looking my best. I didn't want to embarrass you." She sighed, shaking her head. "You've done the opposite. Everyone's staring. People are whispering. I can't believe you'd let someone talk you into this." Her words struck harder than any slap could have. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear the music anymore. My daughter, the one I raised, the one I sacrificed so much for, looked at me not with love, but with shame. I opened my mouth to reply, but no words came. My throat felt tight, my chest heavy. I wanted to explain, to beg her to understand that I hadn't meant for this to happen, that I only wanted to shine a little, to be more than just the aging mother in the corner. But Emily had already turned away. Her bridesmaids called her over, and just like that she was gone, swept back into the swirl of laughter and champagne. I stood frozen, my cheeks burning under layers of powder and blush. The makeup that had felt like armor now felt like a mask, suffocating me. I slipped away from the crowd, weaving between tables and out into the quiet hallway. My heels echoed against the tile as I searched for refuge. A restroom sign caught my eye, and I ducked inside. The mirror above the sink was merciless. Harsh fluorescent light revealed every streak of foundation, every clump of mascara, every smear of lipstick that had strayed beyond the lines. I no longer looked like a glamorous stranger. I looked like a desperate woman who had believed a stranger's lies. Tears welled in my eyes, spilling down my painted cheeks, leaving dark trails. I grabbed a tissue, but the more I wiped, the worse it became. A smudge here, a streak there, until the face staring back at me was nothing but ruin. And in that moment, one thought echoed louder than any other. What have I done to myself? I stayed in that restroom longer than I care to admit. The sound of music and laughter seeped faintly through the walls, muffled by the closed door, while I stood rooted in front of the mirror, holding a crumpled tissue stained with lipstick and mascara. Every time I thought the tears had stopped, a new wave came. Not the quiet tears of nostalgia or a sad movie, but the kind that shook my shoulders, the kind I hadn't cried since my husband passed. I had thought makeup would give me confidence, a glow, a chance to step into my daughter's day as someone special. Instead, it had stripped me bare in the cruelest way, exposing every insecurity I had tried so hard to hide. I pressed my palms to the sink, leaning heavily. My reflection blurred through tears. For the first time in years, I hated what I saw. Not the wrinkles or the thinning hair or the spots of age. It was all life, honestly earned. No, what I hated was the weakness, the gullibility, the fact that I, at nearly 70 years old, could be talked into believing I needed to be someone else. I remembered the salesman's voice, smooth as honey, pouring promises into my ears. Timeless, radiant, bold. His words had wrapped around me like silk. I wanted so badly to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could turn back the clock, if only for one day. But what had it cost me? My daughter's respect, my dignity, the very things that mattered most. I thought of Emily as a little girl, her hair in ribbons, her hand gripping mine as we crossed streets or walked into church. Back then, she looked at me with nothing but trust. I was her anchor, her safe place, the woman she wanted to grow up to be. Now she looked at me like a stranger. A lump rose in my throat again. I dabbed at my cheeks, though the makeup had already smeared beyond repair. My once flawless face now looked like a battlefield after the rain. I couldn't stay here forever. My absence would be noticed. Whispers would turn into questions, questions into gossip. The last thing I wanted was to cast a shadow over Emily's day. But how could I walk back out there? How could I face the guests, the family, my own daughter, with this mask crumbling around me? I closed my eyes, breathing deeply, and in that stillness, a memory surfaced. My husband, years ago, catching me at the bathroom mirror before a dinner party. I had fussed with my hair, dabbed on lipstick 3 times, growing more frustrated with every attempt. Finally, I sighed and muttered, "I'll never look right." He stepped up behind me, rested his hands on my shoulders, and said softly, "You don't need to look right, Margaret. You already are right, just as you are." I swallowed hard at the memory. He had always known how to anchor me, how to remind me of what mattered. Without him here, I had let the voice of a stranger drown out the truth. Wiping my cheeks one last time, I steadied myself. I couldn't undo what had been done, but I could decide what to do next. Would I continue hiding, clinging to a mask that had betrayed me? Or would I have the courage to face the world as myself, bare-faced and true? For now, I only knew one thing. I couldn't go back out there until I stripped away every trace of the lie I had worn. And so, with trembling hands, I reached for another tissue, then another, scrubbing at my skin until the layers came away, until the stranger in the mirror faded and the woman beneath began to return. The woman I had almost forgotten I could be. The sink was littered with tissues, each one smeared with shades of red, brown, and glittering gold. My hands trembled as I worked, but I didn't stop. Layer by layer, I erased the stranger the salesman had painted onto me. The fluorescent lights above hummed steadily, cold and unflattering, but in that moment I was grateful for their honesty. They revealed every flaw the powders had tried to conceal. The fine lines around my eyes, the sagging skin near my jaw, the freckles that had long ago darkened into age spots. I expected to feel ugly. I expected to wince. But instead, when the last streak of mascara finally came away, I felt something different, relief. The woman staring back at me was not flawless. She was not glamorous. But she was me. For the first time all day, I didn't feel like I was wearing a mask. I felt lighter. I leaned closer, studying the face I had tried to hide. Every wrinkle told a story, nights rocking my babies back to sleep, afternoons spent grading papers at the library, evenings laughing so hard with friends that tears streamed down my cheeks. Those lines were not shameful. They were a record of a life fully lived. My eyes, freed from the heavy shadow, looked clearer now, not younger but steadier, and my lips, though pale without the bright lipstick, curved into a small, genuine smile, a smile I recognized. It struck me then how foolish I had been. I had let a stranger convince me that I needed to cover up the very things that proved I had lived, that I had loved, that I had endured. Tears welled again, but this time they were not from shame. They were from clarity, from finally seeing myself again. I sat down on the small bench against the wall, clutching the last tissue in my hands. My breathing slowed. For a few minutes, I just sat there, letting the quiet wash over me. The faint echoes of laughter from the reception hall no longer felt like daggers. They were simply background noise to my own awakening. I thought of Emily, my daughter, my beautiful bride. The words she had spoken still burned. "This isn't you." And she had been right. It hadn't been me. I had shown up to her wedding wearing a stranger's face, and in doing so I had nearly lost her respect. But maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to change that. I stood again, washed my hands, and patted my face with cool water. My reflection looked calmer now, almost serene. My hair was still neatly pinned, my dress still modest and graceful, and with my bare face, I looked like exactly what I was, a 68-year-old mother who had come to celebrate her daughter, nothing more, nothing less. For the first time that day, I felt worthy of being there. I gathered my purse, tossed the stained tissues into the trash, and squared my shoulders. My heels clicked steadily as I walked toward the door, and as I reached for the handle, a thought passed through my mind. When I step back out there, will they whisper again? Or will they finally see me, the real me? I didn't know the answer, but I knew I couldn't hide any longer. It was time to return. The hallway outside the restroom seemed longer than before. Each step of my heels echoed like a drumbeat, a reminder that I was walking back into the very crowd I had fled. For a fleeting moment, fear tugged at me, fear that the whispers would return, that eyes would once again turn toward me in judgment. But I pressed forward. When I pushed open the double doors to the reception hall, the warm glow of string lights greeted me once more. Guests still filled the tables, their conversations lively, their laughter rising and falling with the music. It struck me then how little the world had noticed my absence. The party had carried on as it should. I took a breath and stepped in. A few heads turned, just as they had before. But this time, I noticed something different. There was no shock, no second glances full of confusion. A couple of people smiled politely, their eyes soft, their expressions kind. One woman, an old neighbor of mine, even reached out as I passed and touched my arm gently. "You look lovely tonight, Margaret," she said, and I knew she meant it. Not the painted version, not the salesman's illusion, but me. I felt my shoulders relax. I moved further into the room, weaving between tables. I didn't rush to find Emily. I let myself absorb the atmosphere instead, the smell of roasted chicken, the sound of crystal glasses chiming together, the sight of cousins dancing clumsily to a tune that was too fast for their feet. For the first time that day, I wasn't hiding. I was simply present. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw Emily. She stood with her new husband near the head table, her veil pushed back, her laughter clear as a bell. When her eyes found me, she stilled. The corners of her mouth twitched, uncertain. She excused herself and walked over, bouquet still in hand. "Mom," she said softly, searching my face. "Yes, sweetheart." My voice was calm now, steadier than it had been all day. Her eyes glistened as she studied me, the bare face, the natural lines, the real me. You look like yourself again." I smiled, a true smile this time, because I am myself again. For a moment silence hung between us, then she reached out and squeezed my hand. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I shouldn't have been so harsh earlier. I didn't recognize you, and it scared me. This is the mom I know, and this is the mom I want with me today." Tears stung my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Not yet. I simply held her hand tighter. The music swelled again, and guests cheered as the couple was called back to the dance floor. Emily gave my hand one last squeeze before returning to her husband, leaving me standing there, lighter than I had felt in years. I realized then that respect doesn't come from painted lips or glittering eyeshadow. It comes from standing tall in your own truth. And in that crowded hall, surrounded by family and strangers alike, I finally felt at peace. Later that night, after the music had quieted and the last of the guests began drifting toward the doors, I found myself on the patio outside the reception hall. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of roses from the garden beds, and the sky stretched dark and endless above me, scattered with stars. I slipped into one of the wrought iron chairs, the fabric of my pale blue dress rustling softly as I sat. At last, I was alone with my thoughts. My face was bare, my skin a little raw from scrubbing, but I had never felt more myself. From inside, I could still hear the muffled beat of the band and bursts of laughter. Through the glass doors, I saw Emily dancing with her new husband, her veil shimmering in the light. She was radiant in every sense of the word. I placed my hands on the table and let out a long breath. For the first time all day, it wasn't shaky, it was steady, strong. I thought back to the moment in the store, to that salesman's syrupy voice promising me youth, beauty, admiration. I had been so quick to believe him because deep down, I feared becoming invisible. I feared that at 68, my worth could only be measured by how well I could disguise my years. But tonight had taught me the truth. My daughter hadn't wanted a glamorous stranger at her side. She had wanted me, the woman who had packed her lunches, prayed over her exams, stitched her prom dress hem the night before the big dance, the woman who had held her through heartbreak and stood by her through triumphs. That woman wasn't hidden beneath layers of powder. She was right here, in the lines of my face and the steadiness of my heart. A quiet laugh escaped my lips, half relief, half wonder. How foolish I had been. And yet, maybe I needed this humiliation to remember the lesson I had been slowly forgetting. Dignity doesn't come from pretending. It comes from authenticity. The patio door creaked, and Emily stepped out, still holding her bouquet, her cheeks flushed from dancing. She sat down beside me, slipping her hand into mine. "Mom," she said softly, "thank you for being here tonight. I know I was harsh earlier, but I need you to know I love you just as you are. Always have. Always will." Tears brimmed in my eyes, but they were gentle this time, not heavy with shame. I squeezed her hand. "And I love you, sweetheart, more than you'll ever know." We sat there for a while, listening to the muffled music, the chirp of crickets, the hum of the summer night. No words were needed. Her hand in mine was enough. When she rose to return inside, I stayed behind a moment longer, lifting my gaze to the stars. The night was cool, the roses fragrant, and my heart at last was light. I understood then that no salesman, no product, no painted face could ever give me what I already possessed, the quiet strength of a life fully lived, and the love of a daughter who, despite everything, still needed me, just as I am. And that, I realized, was more beautiful than any mirror could ever show.